So, what are the prospects today for justice for El Salvador's victims of forced disappearance? And not only justice, what are the prospects for learning the truth, finding and identifying remains, receiving reparations, and guaranteeing that forced disappearance does not continue to occur? These are the questions that we're going to discuss here today. And let me just finally say that as members of Congress, I think we have a special obligation to put pressure on our government to make sure that all the facts that we know about some of the individuals who have been disappeared are made available to the families and to organizations that want to find the truth. And we also need to pressure the Salvadoran government, quite frankly. The President of El Salvador should order all the relevant institutions to release all the relevant documents so that people can find out the truth. This shouldn't be a heavy lift. This is the right thing to do. And the reason why it is important to do it now is because a lot of the people that were involved in some of the crimes that we're talking about here today are getting older. Some of them have died. They know where the documents are. They know where the information is that can help give these families the peace of mind to allow them to bury their loved ones. And so we will be working in trying to put together an appeal to both our government and to the government of El Salvador to assist in what is being asked here today. So I look forward to the statements and the recommendations on how the U.S. Congress can help Salvadoran victims of this terrible practice of forced disappearance. I'm now turn this over to Leonora Ortega, who is with the Due Process of Law Foundation, who will moderate this panel. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Congressman Tim Government, for your words that encourage all of us to keep on pushing for some changes in El Salvador that is needed now for victims of human rights violations that have been waiting for so long to get an answer from the government. So welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us here today for this briefing. Investigating forced disappearances in El Salvador Civil War and implications for the justice system. Today, we also want to give special thanks to U.S. House of Representatives, Central America Caucus, and the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission for making possible this briefing. Today, we have with us a privileged delegation from families, children of the disappeared in El Salvador, and also David Morales, the Ombudsman of El Salvador. The children of the disappeared today will break the silence surrounding the abduction of their parents during the 12-year civil war in El Salvador, in which thousands, probably 10,000, people were disappeared at the hands of government security forces. The United States provided the Salvadorian government more than $4 billion in economic and military assistance during the war. Speakers who saw their parents and relatives disappear are now adults, professionals, living, some of them in the U.S., and they are American citizens, and some of them still living in El Salvador. They are joined today, as I said, with David Morales, who's been a long-time expert and someone very committed in against the impunity agenda in El Salvador. They will be calling today on the U.S. and the Salvadorian government to release sealed information that might be helpful to determine what happened to the disappeared, and they will be also calling for a commission in El Salvador to investigate all cases of forced disappearances during the civil wars. These surviving children and family are asking their American government and also the Salvadorian government to assist them in the search for the truth about the disappearances of their parents and family. So I will give the floor to them, and first we will have Alexandra Pike. She is the co-founder of Mauricio Aquino Foundation. She's also a lawyer, and she will give us her testimony today.
Thank you, Leonor, and thank you, Representative McGovern and your staff for generously receiving us and for your just extreme support. It's really humbling for me. I also want to thank the Lantos Commission and the caucus for hosting us. It's an honor to be here with you, and for all of you for taking time out of your busy days to join us and to hear our stories. Again, my name is Alexandra Aquino Fike. I was born in July 21, 1979, to Sylvia Rosales Fike, my mother here, and Mauricio Aquino Chacon. I am the proud graduate of Wellesley College, UC Berkeley School of Law, and Harvard Kennedy School. I'm currently the Vice President of Development at Hispanics in Philanthropy, based in Oakland, California. This is a story of my early beginnings, which has made me into the person I am today. On Wednesday of Holy Week of April 1981, April 15th, 1981, so 35 years to the date tomorrow, uniformed and heavily armed members of the Policía de Hacienda, one of the security forces of the Salvadoran military, stormed into my family's home just before midnight, and before my poor mother's eyes, they forced my father into a military truck where other prisoners had already been tied up and bound. They were lying on the flatbed of the truck. They put my father in that truck, and despite the protests of my mother and my granduncle, a retired general of the military, they took him away. And in the middle of the night, we never saw my father or heard from him or received any word about his whereabouts ever again. And to this day, his status remains disappeared. I was only 18 months old. I was a baby. I have no memories of my father. He was literally disappeared or erased from his family, from his friends, from his community, without any formal charge, trial, or adjudication. Like 10,000 other Salvadorans, my father was a victim of forced disappearance at the hands of the Salvadoran military during the armed conflict. And although my family sought through various legal, informal, and formal channels to find information about his whereabouts, we never received anything. I am proud to be the daughter of Mauricio Aquino Chacon. He was an amazing, loving father, brother, son, husband, who cared about democracy, human rights, economic development, or the crime of trying to speak out about those issues at that time. He was disappeared. I am now a mother of a 2-year-old son. I cannot imagine the horrifying realization that he must have gone through, that he would never ever see us again, that he would never get to see his daughter, kiss his baby girl, kiss his wife, hug his mother and father. I just cannot imagine. It's an unimaginable horror, and it's a horror and a trauma that continues to affect my family. Quite honestly, it's a gaping hole in my heart. But I am continuing his legacy through my professional work, through my educational achievements, and now through this campaign, through this foundation, I am privileged to be organizing. I'm proud to be working with other students and colleagues of mine who are also children of the disappeared. It's truly beginning a healing process for us, but it's only the beginning. And we are here today in front of you to seek your support and your help and an agenda. We're basically asking for 3 things. We would like the Salvadoran government to declassify records pertaining to the forced disappearances of Salvadorans during the armed conflict. We would like the Salvadoran government to create a commission, a national commission charged with the duty and with resources to investigate forced disappearances of adults during the armed conflict. And we would like the U.S. government to declassify records belonging to the CIA and the State Department, again pertaining to the forced disappearances, these tactics, these operations committed during the armed conflict. We want truth, we want information, and ultimately, we want to bury our parents. Every human being deserves that sacred right, that sacred ritual of burial. That's all I want. I want to find my dad, and I want to bury him. And thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to the panel and everyone that has come here today to talk about this very, very important topic, the terrible crimes that were brought upon people that were speaking out, were seeking a better government for themselves and for their families. My heart goes out to you. The stories are incredible. Thank you for sharing. We have a commitment here in Congress, a refocus on Central America, specifically the Northern Triangle. As the co-founder, Jim, of the new caucus that is focused on Central America issues, working with you to address the disappearances, to ensure that we bring law and order to these countries, and we bring justice to the victims, to the families of the disappeared, is a priority. Human rights will continue to be a priority for us as founding members and as we continue to grow our caucus. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for the opportunity to say good morning to you and to wish you a great meeting. And I hope that all of us come out of this with an agenda to ensure that we bring the rule of law back to Central America.
Now we welcome she's a documentary filmmaker, editor, director, and also a daughter of a disappeared victim in El Salvador.
Thank you for being here today, and it is truly an honor. I will share a little bit about myself. My name is Sara Aguilar. I was born in San Salvador and moved to Los Angeles when I was 3 years old. I am a mother, an artist, an educator, and a documentary filmmaker. My work challenges the representations of Latinas in film and the contributions made by underrepresented groups. As a freelance videographer, I work directly with organizations and community that seeks to uplift our community's health and well-being through art practices. My father, Rodolfo Mauricio Aguilar, was born in Santa Ana. He was a philosophy professor. He grew up at a very early age because his mother left to the United States to find work when he was only 13 years old. He was left to raise two of his younger siblings and learned how to be responsible at a very early age. When my grandmother would send shoes, clothes, money back to them, he would always take one pair for himself and wear them until they had holes in his shoes, and give the other pair to somebody who really needed them. As a young boy, he dreamed of being a Jesuit priest in the Catholic Church, but was denied because of some familial circumstances. He and my mother were married in 1980 under a mango tree. Both of them fought and were organized in the student movement. They believed in an egalitarian society for people from all walks of life. My grandmother recalls how excited my father was to learn about soon becoming a father. My mother tells me that he would tell his colleagues at work how he would have to leave the meetings early so that he could come home to rock and bathe me before I went to sleep. He would lay out a mat on my maternal grandmother's living room floor and put books all around so that he could simultaneously read and play with me. He was a very loving and caring father, one that I only know about through stories. Both my father and mother continued being active in the popular movement after I was born. They formed part of an organization of students called the Frente Universitario de Estudiantes Revolucionarios Salvador at the National University, and were organized with the FMLN. My father would accompany peasants to the National Assembly to assure their voices were heard. He would organize protests, marches, and rallies to demand justice. On September 27, 1981, my father was disappeared. I was only 15 months old. He left the house one day, an early morning, to a meeting and was never heard from again. Colleagues called my mother and asked if he had attended the meeting. She had no idea where he could be. All she could say is that he left early that morning. Colleagues investigated and no trace of him was ever found. My mother and I were asked to leave the house where we were staying because of fear of repercussions to the family that we were staying with. We moved into my grandmother's house and then again, shortly after, to my great-grandmother's house. During that time, university students and professors in San Miguel were being persecuted, captured, and killed by the National Guard and death squads. Some people say that my father was captured by the National Guard, taken in one of their vehicles, killed, and buried somewhere on the side of the road between San Miguel and Naunion. But at the time, it was impossible for my mother to go and search. Doing so would have put us in great danger and risk of death. To this day, nobody knows what actually happened to the remains of my father. 11 months after his disappearance, my maternal grandmother's house was ransacked. My grandfather, uncle, and aunt were captured and imprisoned. The next day, 2 members of the death squad, dressed as civilians' clothes, found my mother and I at her friend's home. They captured my mother, detained her, and tortured her. When the International Red Cross found her 10 days later, they transferred her to a women's prison. After 11 months after her release, we left the country. When the peace agreements were signed in 1992, my maternal grandmother went to the Archiepiscopate to name my father as a forcibly disappeared person. However, there were so many cases that it was impossible to investigate, and nothing was ever opened. On my grandfather's side, his current wife went to look for information regarding my father in Guazapa and Morazan to no avail because of lack of information of his pseudonym and his organization. There was still a lot of fear and hesitation on my family's part. My father's legacy lives on through me and my 9-year-old daughter. He lived and fought for fair and equitable treatment of El Salvador's poorest people. He lives on in the work that I do and the stories that I document. Today I honor his life by using my voice to speak truth to power. I demand to know what happened to my father. I want to lay his bones to rest and give him the proper burial that he deserves. Salvadorans in the diaspora have a collective trauma. it needs to be addressed. And as convenient as it is to acknowledge our painful past, the time has come to put pressure on the government to recognize this huge atrocity. The current state of the country can no longer afford our silence.
Thanks so much. Sharing this very powerful and faithful testimony. And now we welcome Jimmy Francisco Ortiz. He is a human rights lawyer in El Salvador, and he's the nephew of two victims of forced disappearance. I'm sorry, and now we will switch to Spanish. Okay. Are you all ready?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for support us. Thank you for seeing us. But I feel more comfortable speaking my mother tongue, so this terrible part of my life, so I'm sorry. Mi nombre es Jimmy Ortiz, soy abogado, pero les voy a hablar sobre mi familia. Mi tío Jorge Alberto Rodríguez Romero, de 19 años de edad. Mi tío Francisco Milton Romero Sequeira, de 22 años de edad, quienes el 17 de enero de 1981, como a las 2:30 de la tarde, cuando miraban un programa de televisión con mi familia, salieron con rumbo a un río llamado El Chahuite para bañarse con sus amigos. A las 4:30 de la tarde, un amigo regresó corriendo, alterado, a la casa, llamando a mi abuelo. Cuando mi abuelo sale, este le dice que mis tíos habían sido capturados por la primera brigada de infantería del cuartel San Carlos y que era muy tarde para ir al cuartel a reclamarlos, y se fue corriendo. En ese momento mi abuelo entra a la casa desesperado, pero no quería contarle a su esposa y a sus 2 hijas para que no se preocuparan. Mi abuela le pidió que le dijera la verdad. Mi abuelo no quería decir, pero al observar que se le salían las lágrimas, mi abuela comenzó a insistir por saber qué pasaba. Mi abuelo le dijo: yo no quiero que te preocupes, pero nuestros hijos los acaban de capturar. En ese momento mi abuela se desvaneció y comenzó a convulsionar. Mi mamá y mi tía, que también escucharon, comenzaron a llorar y a gritar. Las vecinas llegaron y comenzaron a llorar. Todos lloraban y trataban de calmar a mi familia. Mi abuelo solicitó audiencia al cuartel San Carlos. A los días se la concedieron. Lo atendió un oficial y le preguntó qué quería. Mi abuelo le contó lo sucedido. El oficial le dijo: te voy a mandar a otra persona. Mi abuelo contó nuevamente lo sucedido y este le dijo: te voy a mandar a otra persona. ¿Qué te puedo servir? Mi abuelo le respondió: ya con usted son 3. Tal vez usted sí me puede ayudar. Y le contó. El sargento le dijo: sí, yo hice el operativo y yo los capturé. Francisco y Jorge. A lo que mi abuelo replicó: sí, ellos son mis hijos. El sargento respondió: yo los capturé porque andaban armados. Falso. Mi abuelo le dijo: ¿los puedo ver? ¿Puedo platicar con ellos? Él respondió: no, porque los pasamos a la Guardia Nacional. Váyase allá y los reclama allá. Aquí no tienen nada que hacer. Mi abuelo se fue a la guardia. En el portón estaba un oficial. Lo atendió y lo hizo pasar. Lo recibió un sargento y le preguntó qué necesitaba. Mi abuelo le contó lo sucedido. Él comenzó a revisar varias listas y le dice, no aparecen acá. Mi abuelo le preguntó, ¿qué puedo hacer? Pues no me dan información de mis hijos, ni allá ni ustedes. El sargento le dijo, lo único que puede hacer es regresarse al cuartel y reclámelos allá. Pero vengo de allá, le repitió. Mire, señor, lo que nosotros capturamos, nosotros nos hacemos responsables. Si ellos los capturaron, ellos son los responsables. Así que váyase allá y los reclama allá. Mi abuelo se regresó al cuartel y el soldado que estaba en la entrada no lo dejó pasar y le dijo que habían órdenes de no dejarlo pasar. A lo que mi abuelo le replicó, aún no sé nada de mis hijos. Que llamara al oficial para poder hablar con él. Pero él le dijo que no, que habían órdenes de no dejarlo pasar. Mi abuelo le respondió, aquí voy a estar sentado. Cuando venga el oficial, tal vez me puede atender. Mi abuelo pasó varios días sentado a las afueras del cuartel, pero ya no lo atendieron. A los días de verlo llegar, un soldado le dijo, ya no venga. A lo mejor sus hijos están en el cráter del volcán, donde iban a tirar los cuerpos torturados de las personas desaparecidas. Ese fue un golpe del que mi abuelo jamás se pudo reparar. Y es como decidió unirse a los comités de familiares para buscar a sus hijos. Él se fue a Codefam, a Tutela Legal, al Socorro Jurídico, al Comité Internacional de la Cruz Roja, presentó habeas corpus en la Corte Suprema de Justicia. Finalizado el conflicto, presentó su caso en la Comisión de la Verdad. En la Corte Suprema de Justicia, el secretario no lo quiso atender y le dijo, tus hijos eran subversivos. A lo que mi abuelo le replicó que no era así. Luego le dijo, tus hijos se fueron a Estados Unidos y que no le habían avisado. A los 15 días le aceptaron el habeas corpus. Un mes después le respondieron de que no sabían sobre el paradero de sus hijos. Por el tiempo, solo comentar que la desaparición forzada es un delito donde no se sabe si está muerto o está vivo. Y ese trauma que llevó mi familia por tantos años y lo seguimos llevando, es un delito que traspasa esferas, porque yo nací 9 años después de este acontecimiento, pero ese dolor, esa violación me afecta hasta el día de ahora, porque yo vi durante 34 años, 5 meses, 17 días, ver a mi abuelo llorar, como que fuera el día de ayer cuando sucedió. Nosotros no estamos pidiendo venganza, yo solo pido justicia, pero para obtener justicia, ¿qué es lo que se necesita? Saber la verdad. La verdad está reconocido en el sistema universal y en el sistema interamericano como un derecho. Es un principio básico de la democracia, de los derechos humanos. Así que lo único que pido es que nos apoyen para saber la verdad, obtener justicia y construir democracia. Y en el nombre de todas las víctimas de desaparición forzada, antes, durante y después de la guerra, solo pedimos su apoyo como seres humanos. Muchas gracias.
Now we'll hear David Morales, the Human Rights Ombudsman for El Salvador, and someone who has been working for a long time in many of the cases related to the armed conflict, and has been very close to all the victims in El Salvador.
Buenos días, señor representante Magoga, señora representante Torres, distinguidos invitados especiales, gracias por su presencia esta mañana. Se estima en cerca de 10.000 las personas desaparecidas de manera forzada en el conflicto armado salvadoreño. No fueron los únicos hechos masivos y sistemáticos de violaciones a los derechos humanos. Durante más de 5 años se perpetraron sistemáticamente exterminios de cientos de civiles en operativos militares, miles de ejecuciones extrajudiciales, decenas de miles, la instauración generalizada de la tortura y la detención arbitraria, entre otros graves crímenes contra la humanidad. No fueron hechos aislados, fue una política de terrorismo de Estado con fines contra insurgentes. No era una política militar para enfrentar las guerrillas que se consideraban o eran un enemigo armado del gobierno salvadoreño en aquel momento. Fue una política de ataque deliberado y sistemático a la población civil. Millonarios recursos se emplearon en esto. Planificación de Estado, responsabilidad del más alto mando militar, no solo las fuerzas policiales y militares, también un enorme aparato paramilitar que funcionó a nivel nacional, especialmente el sistema de escuadrones de la muerte que funcionó en todo el país. Cuando se adoptaron los acuerdos de paz que pusieron fin a la guerra en 1992, la Comisión de la Verdad llegó a una conclusión muy importante. Dijo la Comisión de la Verdad, esta tragedia por más de una década no hubiera sido posible ni se explica si no es por la complicidad y la responsabilidad del sistema de justicia. El sistema de justicia ha sido cómplice y duramente lo calificó de ser un sistema de justicia profundamente corrupto y sometido a los poderes políticos, económicos y militares. Los acuerdos de paz de El Salvador no contemplaron la impunidad. Una amnistía absoluta para evitar la investigación de estos crímenes no está pactada en ninguno de los textos de los acuerdos de paz. Los acuerdos de paz crearon una comisión de la verdad para investigar los hechos más graves. Los acuerdos finales más importantes, suscritos en Chapultepec, México, establecieron el acuerdo de fin de la impunidad, juicios ejemplarizantes a violadores de los derechos humanos de ambos bandos. El informe de la Comisión de la Verdad es un documento integrado a los acuerdos de paz. La Corte Suprema de Justicia en El Salvador le ha reconocido juridicidad a esos documentos. Deben surtir efectos jurídicos. Y la Comisión de la Verdad planteó como necesaria la justicia y la reparación a las víctimas. Los acuerdos de paz también contemplaron una importante reforma judicial. Reconociendo esta realidad de impunidad, plantearon la necesidad de una reforma democrática que incluya una reforma judicial y, de acuerdo a la Comisión de la Verdad, el primer paso era la depuración de los jueces corruptos. Sin embargo, muy pronto las implicaciones de las responsabilidades tocaron al más alto poder político. El fundador de uno de los más importantes partidos políticos es responsable de la muerte del arzobispo de San Salvador, Monseñor Romero, la cúpula militar responsable del asesinato de los jesuitas. Así que muy pronto se instaura la impunidad, una amnistía absoluta de carácter inconstitucional, evidentemente, se protege a los responsables y se detiene la reforma judicial. Desde el inicio de la posguerra, el sistema judicial fue incapaz inclusive de administrar la temprana violencia de la posguerra. Desde entonces arrastramos disfunciones en nuestro sistema de justicia que en parte explica la tragedia de la impunidad frente a la violencia actual que vive El Salvador. Hay un nexo entre la impunidad del pasado y la prolongación de esta impunidad hasta hoy, en estas profundas debilidades del sistema de justicia. Con el paso de los años, jurídicamente la impunidad se resquebrajó. La Sala Constitucional en el año 2000 declaró que la ley de amnistía no es aplicable a las graves violaciones de derechos humanos. Esta posición quedó claramente consolidada con al menos 4 sentencias de la Corte Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, que no admite ni amnistías, ni prescripción, ni otras excluyentes de responsabilidad para casos de crímenes contra la humanidad. La más importante y reciente, la sentencia sobre el caso de la masacre del Mozote, más de 1000 civiles, la mitad de ellos niños y niñas exterminados en el norte del departamento de Morazán en 1981, con muchas decenas de desaparecidos también en esos hechos. Pese a estos avances jurídicos, todas las denuncias por desapariciones forzadas han sido archivados hasta hoy por el sistema de justicia. Tenemos avances en materia de justicia en Guatemala y en otros países de Latinoamérica. El Salvador parece ser el más férreo estado de impunidad de nuestro continente. Sin embargo, las obligaciones en materia de derechos humanos subsisten y están vigentes. Además de estos presupuestos legales que no admiten amnistías, el caso de las desapariciones forzadas es especial. Son delitos permanentes, se reproducen cada día mientras no se localice el paradero de las víctimas. Los desaparecidos de 1981 siguen desaparecidos hoy, es un delito actual. La amnistía no aplica la prescripción. Hay una obligación de búsqueda que no se quiere cumplir, que el Estado de El Salvador no ha aceptado cumplir. Si hubiéramos buscado a los desaparecidos durante la guerra, hubiésemos desarrollado capacidades de investigación de los crímenes. Tuviéramos leyes con protocolos de búsqueda, tuviéramos bancos genéticos con muestras de los familiares, tuviéramos capacidades de investigación genética y de investigación en materia de antropología forense. Nada de esto hicimos. Después vino el sufrimiento de los desaparecidos de la migración durante su trayecto hacia el norte del continente. Después ha venido la tragedia de personas desaparecidas por la violencia de pandillas. Y no hay capacidad en el Estado de investigar. Atender la agenda de los desaparecidos de la guerra traería enormes beneficios para inclusive la asistencia de las víctimas de los crímenes, de la delincuencia, de la violencia de hoy en El Salvador. Es un tema profundamente vigente. Como procurador acompaño la valentía de las hijas, de los familiares, acompaño la agenda de exigir al Estado de El Salvador búsqueda de los desaparecidos, justicia para las familias, reparación integral. Los únicos procesos legales por violación a los derechos humanos en El Salvador han tenido lugar aquí, en los Estados Unidos. Juicios civiles contra exministros de defensa por violar los derechos humanos y han sido deportados a El Salvador. Un juicio por el asesinato de Monseñor Romero que llevó a la condena civil de un exmilitar. Avanzando un proceso de extradición a España por la masacre de 6 jesuitas y 2 colaboradores de la Universidad Centroamericana. En todos estos casos ha sido una prueba trascendental, información desclasificada por el gobierno de Estados Unidos que ha sido utilizada por la academia que ha colaborado técnicamente en los procesos. Seguir luchando por la desclasificación de información sobre los casos de las miles de desapariciones forzadas en El Salvador sería una enorme contribución a la justicia. Es un deber común, son crímenes que ofenden a la humanidad entera. No podemos en El Salvador construir una verdadera democracia sobre la discriminación de las víctimas. Esta agenda es ineludible para mi país. Agradezco su interés y su compromiso por este tema y por su solidaridad con las víctimas que aquí están representadas por sus hijos. Gracias.
Involve us, very touches and so on, all of us. We don't still,
And I think that we still have a little bit of time, and I would like to open the floor for your comments or questions. Please raise your hand if you want to say something to the speakers.
Buenos días. I'm going to ask my question in Spanish. La Comisión Interamericana ha abordado el tema, los varios temas que ocurrieron durante la Guerra Civil salvadoreña. Han celebrado varias audiencias que abordan el tema, los varios temas de impunidad de las violaciones a derechos humanos en El Salvador. En nuestra última audiencia, el canciller expresamente aborda el tema de la impunidad y básicamente dice que, no con estas palabras, pero algo similar, que el Estado se encuentra como con las manos atadas en vista de la pendencia en la Sala Constitucional de esta acción de inconstitucional contra la ley de amnistía. Pese a que la organización de la sociedad civil de manera sostenida ha argumentado que ya la Sala Constitucional ha abierto la posibilidad de no aplicar esta ley. Sabemos que este recurso de inconstitucionalidad está pendiente desde hace ya unos años. Ya que ustedes vienen del país, ¿qué información podrían compartir sobre la pendencia? Si hay alguna expectativa de pronunciamiento próximo, en vista de que han visto varios pronunciamientos en años anteriores de magistrados de la Sala Constitucional diciendo que ya la sentencia está lista, luego que se están afinando algunos detalles, que estamos esperando elecciones, ¿qué sabemos sobre esa información?
La justicia no depende de esta sentencia pendiente, porque ya hay una sentencia del año 2000 que permite llevar adelante los juicios. Pero el límite de esa sentencia del 2000 es que depende de los jueces y los fiscales que conocen los casos concretos. La Comisión Interamericana ha lamentado que este mecanismo interno jurídico no ha funcionado en ningún caso. La sentencia pendiente permitiría una nulidad judicial de alcances mayores y probablemente la anulación de pleno derecho de la ley de amnistía, pero lamentablemente la Sala Constitucional está retardando la justicia en este tema, aparentemente por razones políticas, y hay una retardación injustificada en este momento. Por lo tanto, no es excusa, sí puede haber justicia, hay un incumplimiento de Estado, pero la nueva sentencia puede traer enormes beneficios para las víctimas.
Do we have any other comment or question?
Could you just say a little in English about your work to reach out to other family members who had loved ones disappear here in the United States?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm the co-founder of the Mauricio Aquino Foundation, and our mission is to support, to provide a space for victims of forced disappearance, particularly the children, to find each other. We want to build a network, and the mission is to find truth and reconciliation for these children. The way we're doing that is, one, creating a network of children of the disappeared. We're doing that through in-person meetings, through word of mouth, through media, through online, digital, social media, you name it, we're trying to do it. We're also trying to advocate, create a campaign called the Our Parents Phones campaign, excuse me. The website is www.ourparentsphones.org for more information. We'll also have flyers outside. And this is a PR campaign, a political campaign, whose goal is to create pressure from the outside, from the U.S., with the children as the protagonists, who are mostly U.S. citizens, to pressure the U.S. government, to in turn pressure the Salvadoran government to open the files, to create that national commission I mentioned earlier, and ultimately give us information about the whereabouts of our parents. So we're just in the beginning stages of it, but we're already a group, of about, I would say, 50 young children. We really hope to grow. We're all professionals, all probably the same generation. I think all of us were born in the late 70s, early 80s, although we have young members coming up now. I really encourage you all to learn more about this campaign. There's different ways you can support us. We'll be sending out petitions and letters to our congressmen. We'll be, doing typical change.org petitions to get Obama, hopefully, to declassify files through the executive branch. And we're obviously trying to work with our Salvadoran counterparts to assist them to declassify files and create enough pressure to give them that support and space to do so. And of course, we will be demanding the president of El Salvador to take a stand on this issue. So yes, please sign up, get information, donate. Sorry, I'm wearing my development hat. So please join. I hope you join our movement.
I just want to reiterate something I said at the very beginning. We had talked about this earlier. So for those who represent congressional offices here, in the coming days, you should expect to receive a letter that we're going to organize for members of Congress to sign, one to our government here, asking for their help in trying to declassify relevant documents that could help Sarah and Alexandra, amongst others, to be able to get information to find out where their fathers are. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to circulate a letter to the President of El Salvador, because he has the authority right now to order the relevant agencies and departments and the armed forces to release documents that could be helpful to families. And the time is now. And so look for those letters going around, and please get your bosses to sign on, and hopefully we can beat some wind at your back. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So wonderful news. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Thanks a lot to Sandra and Amy for sharing your testimony and the music for your political legal analysis. Everybody has said that the time is now for El Salvador to have a government that claims to be, connected to the victims, and also a new attorney general that took office 2 months ago that also has claimed to be open and more connected with victims in El Salvador. So please, everybody, be part of this campaign and these efforts.